Have you ever watched a congressional hearing and wondered, why do our leaders argue so fiercely on live TV? Are they protecting the country or just protecting themselves? This week, I watched a hearing that left me speechless. Under the harsh lights of Capitol Hill, with cameras rolling and tension thick in the air, one congressman stood up, pointed across the room, and asked the FBI director a single question. Sir, do you hold any stock in a company founded in China? That question sliced through the air like a blade, not just cutting into the silence, but into the heart of America itself. Because at its core, it wasn't about money or politics. It was about trust. I've worked in U.S. politics for over 2 decades, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When a nation begins to doubt the very people who are meant to protect it, the crack isn't in the system. It's in the public's faith. In that hearing, Congressman Hank Johnson accused FBI Director Kosh Patel of holding shares in a company with Chinese roots, Elite Depot, connected to the fashion giant Shein. Patel responded calmly, explaining that the Department of Justice had reviewed and approved his holdings. But in Washington, sometimes being right isn't enough. The real issue wasn't whether Patel broke the rules. It was whether he could be suspected of breaking them. Because in this town, trust is the currency of power, and once it's gone, no title or clearance can buy it back. I remember an intelligence director once told me something I'll never forget. In Washington, you don't need proof to lose credibility. All it takes is suspicion, and that's exactly what played out here. This story isn't just about one man or one stock. It's about how America sees China, not only as an economic rival, but as a shadow that lurks behind every decision we make. In today's climate, even the faintest link to China can turn into a national security debate overnight. But beneath all that political noise lies a deeper fear. A fear that China's power doesn't just come from its military or its economy, but from its to infiltrate our trust. Patel tried to explain himself, but when the public is angry, no explanation ever lands. People stop listening to understand. They listen to condemn. And that's the tragedy of our times. Hearings that should bring clarity now only amplify division. I've worked on political campaigns. I've seen how fear, once it enters the room, becomes the most powerful political weapon of all. Congressman Johnson wasn't just talking about stocks. He was pressing on America's deepest anxiety, the fear of infiltration, manipulation, and loss of control. And in that moment, Patel became more than a public official. He became a symbol of a larger question. Who really holds power in America? Us or the invisible hands outside our borders? Maybe you're watching this at home after a long day wondering, what does any of this have to do with me? But it has everything to do with all of us. Because when people lose faith in those who uphold justice, justice itself begins to lose its meaning. And perhaps the most frightening thing about modern politics isn't that someone might be wrong. It's that truth is fading faster than our hatred. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how this exchange reveals America's internal struggle between national security, personal integrity, and public trust. When you look deeper into that hearing, you start to realize it wasn't just a conversation about China or about one man's stock portfolio. It was a reflection of who we've become as a nation, a country caught between vigilance and paranoia, between accountability and political theater. Let's be honest, China is America's biggest strategic rival. It's not just about trade wars or technology anymore. It's about ideology, influence, and the battle for global leadership. Every move China makes is seen as a challenge to the American order, and every tie, financial or personal, is viewed with suspicion. So when a high-ranking official like the FBI director owns stock in a company with Chinese origins, even if it's technically legal, it feels wrong. Because perception in Washington is as powerful as reality. I've seen this play out before. Years ago, a senator I worked with was accused of taking campaign donations from a firm that had distant ties to Russia. There was no evidence of wrongdoing, but the story alone destroyed his credibility. That's the world we live in now, where optics can ruin a career faster than facts can defend it. And yet there's something more dangerous beneath that surface. the way our politics weaponize suspicion. Congressional hearings have become less about truth-finding and more about sound bites, crafted moments that go viral on social media. Every pointed question, every raised eyebrow, every moment of outrage, it's all content now. The courtroom of public opinion has replaced the process of due diligence. When Congressman Johnson accused Director Patel of protecting pedophiles, the hearing shifted from political oversight to pure spectacle. That's when I felt the air change, not just in the room, but in the broader national conversation. We stopped talking about policy and started talking about character assassination. It wasn't about China anymore. It was about rage. And rage, once unleashed, doesn't serve justice. It serves chaos. Patel's response, though, was telling. Calm, measured, and yet deeply human. You could see in his eyes that he wasn't just defending his reputation. He was defending the integrity of the institution he represents. He reminded Congress that under his leadership, the FBI had increased counterintelligence arrests by 33% and captured 1,500 child predators in 7 months. That's not a statistic. That's a reflection of the work happening quietly behind the noise. But here's the paradox. In modern America, good work doesn't speak for itself anymore. Scandal does. We reward outrage more than we reward honesty. And the more divided our country becomes, the easier it is to destroy someone's credibility just by suggesting corruption. You see, I don't think this story is really about Patel, or even China. It's about the moral exhaustion of a democracy constantly at war with itself. Every hearing, every headline, every accusation chips away at our sense of common truth until we're all standing on different versions of reality. And when truth becomes subjective, trust dies next. I once had a mentor in Washington who said something I didn't understand at the time. He said, the real threat to democracy isn't the enemy outside, it's cynicism inside. It took me years to realize how right he was, because cynicism is contagious. It spreads faster than any virus, and it kills something even more vital than hope. It kills the willingness to believe. So when we watch a hearing like this, we have to ask ourselves, are we still looking for truth, or are we just looking for someone to blame? Because if we're honest, outrage has become our entertainment. We don't watch politics to understand anymore. We watch it to feel angry, righteous, or vindicated. And that's exactly how trust erodes. Not in a single scandal, but in 1,000 moments of emotional manipulation. What makes this hearing important isn't just the confrontation. It's what it says about us, about a country that's lost the ability to separate vigilance from vengeance. Yes, we should demand integrity from our leaders. Yes, we should question their ties, their motives, their finances. That's democracy at work. But when every question becomes an accusation, and every accusation becomes a spectacle, we end up not with accountability, but with chaos. And chaos, history shows us, is where empires begin to crack. Maybe this is why so many Americans feel disillusioned. We see corruption everywhere, lies everywhere, division everywhere. And slowly we stop believing that anyone is telling the truth. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Democracies don't collapse because of lies. They collapse because people stop caring enough to find the truth. Patel's hearing in the end is just one chapter in a much larger story. A story about America's struggle to redefine who it trusts, what it believes, and how it protects its own ideals in a world that's constantly testing them. So maybe before we rush to judge, we should pause. Because sometimes the real danger isn't the enemy outside. It's the echo chamber we've built inside our own minds. In the next section, we'll explore what this confrontation reveals about America's future, how the battle between transparency, politics, and national security is shaping the soul of the nation itself. As the hearing wrapped up, cameras clicked, papers shuffled, and the room emptied out. But what lingered wasn't the shouting, it was the silence that followed. That uneasy quiet where truth feels just out of reach and everyone walks away claiming victory. You see, this is the paradox of American democracy. We fight so hard to uncover corruption that sometimes we forget to protect credibility. We demand accountability, but we rarely offer forgiveness. And in the process, we've turned politics into something it was never meant to be, a spectacle of suspicion. The Patel hearing wasn't just another headline, it was a mirror reflecting what we as a society have become: divided, distrustful, and desperate for clarity in a world drowning in noise. And maybe that's why it hit such a nerve. Because deep down, every American understands what's really at stake here. It's not about China. It's not even about politics. It's about trust in our institutions, in our leaders, and in ourselves. If that trust collapses, no enemy has to defeat us. We'll do it to ourselves. When I look at what's happening, the endless hearings, the accusations, the outrage, I don't just see politics. I see fatigue. I see a country exhausted from constant conflict, where even truth feels partisan. But I also see hope, because beneath the chaos, people are still watching, still asking questions, still caring. And that, to me, is where democracy still breathes. The road forward isn't about silencing one side or glorifying the other. It's about remembering that disagreement isn't destruction. It's part of who we are. We don't need less debate. We need better debate. We need fewer performances and more conversations that start not with accusation, but with understanding. Because when we listen, truly listen, something powerful happens. Truth has a way of finding its voice again. So the next time you see a heated exchange on Capitol Hill, try to look past the noise. Ask yourself not just who's right or who's wrong, but what kind of country are we becoming through the way we fight? Because at the end of the day, democracy doesn't live in the halls of Congress. It lives in the hearts of people who still believe that words, honesty, and integrity matter. And if we can hold on to that, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, then maybe we haven't lost our way after all. Thank you for watching. If this story made you think, if it reminded you why truth and trust still matter, then take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Because here on this channel, we don't chase outrage. We chase understanding. And together, maybe, just maybe, we can rebuild the trust that holds this nation together.